Well, hello everyone, and welcome to my place. This is my 16th show, my 16th Saturday doing these shows and being with you. I'm so glad that you are here. Without you, I have nothing. So great to see you, so to speak. And gosh, welcome to all the people who are here for the first time. You're going to hear a lot of great stories and hear some songs, and I hope I can regale you with my tales and my tunes. And welcome back to all the folks that have been here before, that have been so supportive. I really appreciate it. I read your names after the show. I can't really interact with you directly right now, but afterwards I like to respond to people that are here and that have made comments and this and that. So that's always, it's always fun for me to review the show afterwards and see what you guys have to say, you guys and gals. Before we go any further, shall we all hit the share button? Not the Sonny and Share button, the SHARE button, to get this program out to as many folks as we can. My friends, your friends, and their friends, etc., etc. And you know, I've been doing all these shows for all these weeks, and of course they're always free. They're free, my brothers and sisters. You don't need anything. Just welcome to my tent. Come in. Leave your camels outside. But all my shows are free. But if you like what I'm doing, and if you want to support what I'm doing here, please don't hesitate to send in a contribution, a gift, a donation, call it what you like. There's a PayPal link, I hope, that's up there, and a VENMO link that you can use to do that. And anything that I get in the way of a contribution, a portion of that will go to MusiCares, which is a program for musicians in times of need, such as right now. And that would be fantastic. Oh, and you know, it's the same MusiCares that Ringo recently chose as one of his charitable foundations for his 80th birthday. Happy birthday, Ringo, by the way. And let's see, what else do I have to tell you? Oh, just want to take a quick look at my notes here. This is an iPad. I use it for my script, so to speak, and every now and again I'll glance over to keep me on track and make sure I don't forget anything, because I do a lot of research and talk to a lot of people and get their memories of the events that I addressed during the course of the show. So forgive me if I every now and again look over here. I want to thank my graphics man this week, Murphy Cargus. He did a great graphic for me that I used to help promote the show. Murphy is kin to me. He is my sister's stepson, my sister's husband, Terry Cargus. His son, Murphy Cargus, is my step-nephew. And he is a great graphic artist, photographer. You should check out his YouTube page, which is really happening. He's excellent, and he was a former bass player for Sugar Ray. I don't know if it's former. I mean, he's always going to be the bass player for Sugar Ray, right? So that goes without saying. So I recommend that you go check him out and see how talented he is, and you will understand what I'm talking about. I also have a correction or two from last week. You know, I forgot we were talking about Three Dog Night and how enormous their popularity was. They had some of the greatest songwriters around of the day. As I mentioned, Danny Hutton had a great ear for a hit. He knew a hit when he heard one, and he grabbed all the great writers and all the songs from Paul Williams, Hoyt Axton, Randy Newman, Harry Nilsson, Bonner and Gordon, who wrote for Dino, Desi, and Billy, and Leo Sayer. He wrote The Show Must Go On, I believe. Anyway, also, this is so important, I forgot to mention, in 1972, Three Dog Night were the largest grossing act in the country, in the world. Perhaps you remember they got the cover of Rolling Stone. They're standing by a charter jet, their jet. It was a Falcon. It looked like a Lear, but it's actually a Falcon jet. Beach Boys chartered those on occasion too. Anyway, those are the little corrections, so to speak. I have a happy birthday wish I'd like to send out to my pal Scott Rhodes. Scott, happy birthday. Your wife Mary told me So happy birthday to you. Scott is also one of my students. I teach music. In his case, we do guitar, but I teach music from kids from 6 to 60, I like to say. And if you go to my website, billyhinsche.com, you'll see a link to how you can get in touch with me if you want a music lesson or somebody that you know, family member or a friend. I'd be happy to work with you or them. Also on my website you can see trailers for movies that I've made over the years, documentaries of On the Road with the Beach Boys, and one for Carl and one for Dennis, and you can just check out those trailers just for the fun of it. And there are photos there that you might find interesting and fun. I also have affiliated with a company called Cameo that I do video shout outs. Like the other week I wished someone a happy birthday via a video shout out. So that's available too. But anyway, go to my website. I also have a second birthday greeting from Mark Green. Mark has been a real supporter of my show, and I really appreciate that. And Mark had a birthday yesterday, so happy birthday to you, Mark. Surprise, surprise. I bet you didn't know I knew that it was your birthday. Anyway, I have a Q&A segment. I've got one question this week. It's from my friend Larry Cohen. He's out there in Beverly Hills, and his question is, a funny question, was there any thought of calling your group Billy, Desi, and Dino alphabetically, in other words? The answer is no, but I will tell you we considered Martin and the Martians out. Wasn't going to work. Arnez and the Argonauts? Nothing? Nothing? No. Wasn't going to work. How about Hinsche and the Henchmen? No? You're right. So we're stuck with Dino, Desi, and Billy. Well, anyway, that is that. And I just want to say that, you know, it is so darn hot here in Las Vegas. I saw a fire hydrant chasing a dog today. Very hot. Hello, my friends. It's good to see you again. Guess it's been a few years since I've been away, but I'm happy to say I'm doing okay myself. I can dig what's happening, and every day there is something new. And hey, good things are coming my way. So tell me, how have you been? There's so much you gotta tell me. Let's talk about them good old days when we laugh and say, hey, man, you're okay. Let's take it nice and easy now. It's a brand new year. Lots of things are happening, and hey, good things are coming my way. Tell me, how have you been? There's so much you gotta tell me. Let's talk about them good old days when we laugh and say, hey, hey, ain't life okay? Yeah, it is. Don't go away so soon now. Let's get on back into that groove. We'll stick around for a couple of days, 'cause hey, good things are coming my way. Good things are coming my way. My way. My way. My way. 'Cause it's alright now, baby, it's alright now. Alright now, baby, it's alright now. And I also forgot to tell you about my new setup. What do you think? I turned the camera around and set up the keyboard here, and I got a better angle of the dangle, and I got the natural light coming in. Would you excuse me? I have a call coming in. Excuse me. Hello? Hello there. Well, how are you? Okay, well, I'm right in the middle of a show. Do you mind if I put you on speaker and maybe you could say hi to my viewers? Hold on a sec. Everybody, this is my dear friend May Pang. She's calling me all the way from New York City, and you know, May has been such a great friend over the years, and she's an author, and she makes fabulous jewelry, and oh my gosh. May, say hi to the nice folks. Go ahead.
Oh, hello, everyone out there, and you're out in LA and wherever that's watching. 100 and something degrees in Las Vegas. I don't think I could handle that.
It's very hot. I got to tell you, it's quite hot.
I can't believe it. So I'm glad I'm not there. It's bad enough in New York with its humidity. So it's crazy.
Well, listen, I know you have a new website, don't you? And tell the folks about your jewelry, etc. Tell them about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, you know, I revamped my website if anybody wants to go and check it out. It's maypang.com. And guess what? I'm also on Cameo as well, like you, to do shout-outs for people.
Great.
So we're both on the same place. So people, come and check us out. Yeah, and I have my jewelry. I've been making jewelry for a while. It's my feng shui jewelry and some other stuff. And they want to go on. They could also purchase one of my books that I have. You know, that's whatever's left, the limited copies. But I have them if anybody wants to buy any. And, you know, and I'm working on a special project that hopefully it'll be out later on, probably next year. It won't be here. Won't be now, that's for sure. Not with this pandemic. I hope you're okay out there.
Oh, I'm doing great. And I'm sure the folks are going to love your you know, the jewelry and your website and the books you've written and the fabulous photos that you've taken and all the great stories. You know, I keep telling May she's going to be in my show when I take this show out into the world because we have a lot of shared experiences and a lot of mutual friends. And so, yeah, let's do that someday. May, thank you so much for calling in. Love you lots, and take care of yourself, and I hope to see you real soon.
Yeah, definitely. And goodbye, everyone. And you, we'll be doing this road trip soon. Okay?
All right, my dear. Talk later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
May Pang, who knew? Well, that was wonderful. You know, May and John Lennon were at this party I was at. I talked about it quite a few shows ago. I call it the greatest party ever. It was Ricky Martin's birthday, and if you want to go back and check that out, it's archived on my Facebook, you know, way back though, and May's got some wonderful stories. In fact, I'm going to reference her a little bit later. But first of all, let me say, we are going to go to London, England right now. That's what my show's about. We're going to go to the CBS convention in London, England, July 30th of 1977. The Beach Boys were signed to Columbia, to CBS. Big deal, as I recall. I think it was like $1 million deal. I mean, I remember Carl showing me the check. It was like $900 and something thousand, and it was like, whoa, biggest check I'd ever seen. Yeah, and I said, can I take a picture of me with this check? And he was like, no. I was lucky that he showed it to me at all. Anyway, yeah, it was a big deal. So much fun going to. Oh, I love London to begin with. We were staying at the Grosvenor House, which was centrally located. It's an old grand hotel in the Mayfair area, I believe, you know, near all the significant sites that you might want to see if you're a tourist, the Buckingham Palace and, you know, all those fabulous places. I'm going to need to take a little sip here of my house drink. Lipton cold brew iced tea, lemonade, squeeze of lemon, a little effervescence with a Pellegrino, and today I put a little guava nectar. Ooh, very exotic, but very quenching. It's quite hot and dry here, so I have to stay hydrated, as we say in Las Vegas. But it's a dry heat. So here's to you. Over the teeth and over the gums. Look out, stomach, here it comes. So, anyway, this convention was being held in London. They had held it in, LA, New York, Florida in the years gone by. And they decided to, for a change of pace, they're going to do it in London. It was a big deal. I mean, Elvis Costello was newly signed, and he was playing outside the hotel, I think on a flatbed or something, just to stir up the excitement of the event. And, I got a lot of great stories and detail from my dear friend Ron Luxembourg. Ron is one of the legends in the record industry and a dear friend of mine. And I spoke with him at length recently about this whole event, the London convention. I want to tell you a little bit about Ron. He has over 50 years of experience in the industry. He started in 1965, which is about the same time that I got started with Dino and Desi. He's the youngest head of promotion in the company's history, senior VP and general manager of Epic Records, which was a division of CBS Records Group. I should tell you right away, he's written a book. It's going to come out very soon. It's called From the Warehouse to the Penthouse. Isn't that a great title? He gave me a little taste of it. He told me a couple little anecdotes. It's going to be a great read. So remember that title, From the Warehouse to the Penthouse. Go out and get it as soon as you can, because it's going to be a great rock and roll book. That's really all I read. I read bios. I've read everyone from Paul Schaefer, Chuck Negron, Don Felder, Jerry Weintraub. I mean, Chrissy Hind. I just love them. And these music-related books, music industry-related books are my favorite. So go check out Ron's book when it comes out. Ron was right in the thick of it when the Beach Boys did Summer in Paradise, and he assisted in the incredible packaging, if you guys recall, you Beach Boy fans, the very innovative packaging for Summer in Paradise. In fact, I was on the road with the Beach Boys, and Bruce and I heard that Garth Brooks was at the hotel. And actually, we saw his bus, and we went and knocked on the door, and his brother came out and said, well, Garth's in the hotel. So we went up to his room and knocked on the door, and the brother explained who Bruce and I were, and we went in and we gave him a copy of Summer in Paradise, and he was looking at it, turning it around and opening it up, and really intrigued because it was so innovative. Well, that was Ronald Luxembourg who was responsible for that. Very, very clever designing. And Ron has worked or signed, Hart, Kansas, Boston. He has a thing for states and cities, I guess. And the OJs, Teddy Pendergrass. Excuse me. He signed Meatloaf. Now, my question is, at the meet and greets after one of his shows, now, is it meet the meat, or is it greet the meat, or eat some meat at the meet and greet when you meet meat? I don't know. I gave up trying to figure that out. Anyway, Ron also signed, the great Charlie Daniels, who just passed away a few days ago. They had a 48-year relationship, and as Ron describes him, he was a real mensch. He was a real great guy, translation. And Ron also signed a cat named Michael Jackson. Perhaps you've heard of him. Yeah, so Ron's a heavy hitter. Well, not only that, but he was inducted into the Long Island Music Hall of Fame recently. So that's really something to be said. And what I'm getting at is that he was chosen to be the Toastmaster of this convention. And he was the keynote speaker. In fact, he had Mick Jagger at his table. And he describes Jagger as being very personable and funny. And I think with Mick Jagger, it's always been fascinating to me. It depends on who you ask about him, interacting with him. I asked Jim Guercio, and Jim found him to be, a little standoffish, kind of a competitive guy. And maybe some of you remember Tom Hewlett at Concerts West. I was once talking about Mick Jagger with Tom, and Tom said that he's a very smart man, and that he he liked to get in conversation and just sort of pick your brain of details and figures and facts and this and that, and then take it and then make it his own, you know, apply it to his life and to his group. And speaking of May Pang, she said, you know, well, Mick was Mick, you know. She said he'd call the house where she and John were living at on 52nd Street in Manhattan and just say, I'm coming over. And John would say, all right, we're here, come over. And he would, and they'd have their Chinese beef curry. And so May had a good relationship with Mick. And I remember looking over at Mick at the table, and I noticed he was having a salad. And he had a pepper grinder. It was very interesting. He put the pepper on like this. Yeah, just like that. And in the famous words of Julius Caesar, who once said, wait, let me mix that salad. Anyway, Ron told this great story about this CBS convention, which, by the way, the Beach Boys headlined, so to speak, but it was also Stephen Stills, who had just signed a solo deal, and also Bill Withers. So those were the three that I remember. There might have been others, but those were the big hitters, heavy hitters. So apparently the food wasn't so great at the dinner, at the big event that we played at, and so Ron goes in, you know, these American executives, you know, they weren't too keen on the English cooking, English British cuisine. So Ron goes to the back, talks to the head chef, gives him a couple of $100 and says, how many steak sandwiches can you make? As fast as you can. So the chef gets busy, and afterwards, as everyone's leaving, they had people handing steak sandwiches out to the executives. Compliments of Epic Records, compliments of Epic Records, compliments of Epic Records. And Ron, very smart, you know, because those things go a long way. People will remember that, you know. It's funny, people remember a great meal or a great sandwich, you know, after an event that the food wasn't so great. So that's why Ron was the man. Anyway, he tells me another story of Walter Yetnikoff was the president of CBS. He was the main guy. And he comes up to visit Ron in his room, and Walter comes in and he goes, there's a guy sitting outside the hallway near your door with a gun. What is going on? And Ron says, well, that's the security for the Sheikh of Qatar. The Sheikh of Qatar is next door. And guess what? He brought a goat with him. You ready for that? It's not what you may think. Apparently the Sheikh needed goat milk. So, you know, the Sheikh needed a shake, I guess. Anyway, that was that. And Walter's like, well, you know, you can't have executives coming up here to visit you and some guy sitting out there with a gun. I'm going to take this seltzer water bottle and, you know, give him a shot. You know, like now it's going to turn into a Marx Brothers movie. Anyway, I want you to, oh, I got one more story that Ron told me that's pretty darn funny. So now it's Ron's birthday, all in the same period of time. Walter says, I want you to come down. I got a present for you. Come down. It's in front of the hotel. So Ron goes down, and Walter brings like 50 of the executives with him. And they walk down, and there's this beautiful 1937 Rolls Royce sitting out in front of the hotel. And Ron's like, oh, wow, what a beautiful car. And Walter says, go open the door. Go ahead. So Ron opens the door, and there's the goat in there. They got him a goat. That's his birthday present, not the Rolls. And so very funny. They named it Jubilee because it was the, you know, the Jubilee. Was it the Silver Jubilee event in London at that time, 1977? I don't recall. But anyway, so very funny. Ron puts the goat on a leash, takes it across the stage, does his keynote speech. Funny stuff. Get his book, From the Warehouse to the Penthouse. It's gonna be a fantastic read. Take another little sip here. My dear friend Alison Mogul happened to be in London at the same time I was, and we palled around, and I invited her to the convention to see the Beach Boys perform. And one of the hippest ladies I know, she just is wonderful. She and her sister Kathy, who I adore, both of them, They're just great. I've known them for many, many years. You know, Allison lives out there in Ventura County, I think, right near Camarillo. You know, Camarillo. They have a mental hospital there. You know, I played there once. The place went nuts. Anyway, Allison and I, we went to her mother's house, Shirley's apartment. It was a beautiful flat in London, and somehow we connected with Jimmy McCullough, you know, Paul McCartney's guitar player in Wings for a while. I had met Jimmy at the Ricky Martin session at Brother Records in Santa Monica. He played on Ricky's Beach CD for you hardcore fans. Excuse me. Anyway, we had a good old time, and so we're going to, I got to tell you about her dad, Artie Mogul, absolute legend. I got to know Artie over the years. Artie was an innovator, much like Ron Luxemburger. These are the giants of the industry, man. They wrote the book. They don't make them like that anymore, seriously. He discovered the Kingston Trio, Dylan, Laura Nero. He signed Hootie and the Blowfish just on the basis of their name, Artie Mogul did. But my favorite, of course, is he signed Wilson Phillips. So you gotta love Artie for that. Worked about at every major label, and he was the president and owner of United Artists. You know, I mean, pretty intense. When Elvis Presley died, with all due respect, his fans were buying a lot of his albums after he passed away. And so Artie sort of offhandedly says in a meeting, let's shoot Paul Anka. Well, anyway, Paul gets wind of it and calls Artie in the middle of the night, and he berates Artie, and Artie had the presence of mind to say, well, Paul, don't you know you're the only artist I could think of with that kind of stature that could sell those kinds of numbers, who move those kinds of records. Anyway, he happened to, he helped assuage Paul Anka's dismay. I got to tell you about this next segment because, you know, Mick Jagger was in the audience. They're always fascinating to me, the Stones and Mick, and I never really met, you know, I hadn't met the Stones over the years. It was just one of those things. I'd seen them play in Long Beach Arena, and I just love the British Invasion, love the Stones. And I'd seen them on the Hollywood Palace where Dean Martin hosted, and I also saw them on the Ed Sullivan Show, of course. You know, in fact, Dino Desi and I recorded a couple of their songs on our own albums. I'm going to play a couple for you right now. Oh, P.S. This Telecaster. Remember I told you the story of I traded in a couple of my guitars and I got some cash and I got some guitars. This is one of them. This is a 1974-75 black on black Telecaster. It's got a DiMarzio pickup in the front here. I used it. I've had this like for 30 years. I used this on the Carl Wilson solo tour exclusively. This is my axe. And recently I did a rock and roll fantasy camp, and the only guy I would let sign this guitar, or any guitar, is Jeff Beck. You see that signature? Yep. So this guitar's got a lot of significance for me. Anyway, that was a little aside, so let me play some Stones here. I'm gonna tell you how it's gonna be. You're gonna give your love to me. Love lasts more than one day. Said love is love, not fade away. Said love is love, and not fade away. I told you once, and I told you twice, but you never listened to my advice. Don't try very hard to please me. With what you know, it should be easy. Well, this may be the last time. This may be the last time. Maybe the last time. I don't know. home. But if you try sometime, you might find you get what you need. Yeah, well, I got to tell you this story. I said I didn't meet any of the Stones, but this one time I did. In the latter years, I got a call from Jerry Beckley from the group America, dear friend. I did a whole segment on them recently. And he's on the old road in Malibu near the Colony. Is where he used to live, and he calls me up. He said, "Hey man, you got to come over. Ronnie Wood's here. You got to come over right away." You know, and I was just in Santa Monica at my sister's house down the street, so I went up there, and sure enough, there's Woody, Ronnie Wood, and Jerry's there, and Dewey Bunnell, the other member of the group America, and so we're, you know, playing music and telling stories and having a good old time. And at one point in the evening, I said, "You know, Ron, I would love it if you showed me the intro to Tumbling Dice." And you know what he says to me? He says, "Absolutely, I will, if you show me how to play Help Me Rhonda." I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that he didn't know how to play Help Me Rhonda on his very own. But he showed me this great opening riff. Sorry? Let me try that again. Better. Yeah, that's better. Anyway. Got to work on that a little bit. Been a while since I played it. Anyway, great riff. And you know, I bought a painting of his. He's a painter, excellent painter. And I went to this place in Vegas called the Jack Gallery, and it's a painting of Keith actually. And he showed up. Everybody knew he was going to show up, so everybody, you know, there's quite a crowd of people there. And when he showed up, it was like absolute pandemonium. It was like the 60s again. And, you know, you couldn't get near him, and it was pushing and shoving, and oh my gosh, it was crazy. But it was great. I had a chance to see him briefly, and, you know, nice guy from what I could tell. Didn't really, you know, other than the brief meeting at Jerry's, that was it. Anyway. You know, I got to tell you about this story. I was up at Hugh Hefner's house, up at the mansion, you know, and he's talking to Dennis Weaver. You know Dennis Weaver, the famous actor. You know, you may have remembered him from McCloud. Yeah. So anyway, you know, they started getting an argument. You know, Hefner and Weaver, they start arguing, and then they start, you know, getting into it, and you know, getting physical, and you know, they're gonna land up on the floor, and Hefner's, you know, just on top of Dennis Weaver, and I say, hey, Hugh, get off of McCloud. Sorry, none of that was true. None of it. So, anywho, I have to tell you this story about Allison and I were going to go see the show. She was my guest. And we're riding down in this ancient elevator in the Grosvenor house. And Audrey Wilson is accompanying us. And, excuse me, Boss Skaggs is also on the elevator with us. And it's one of those ancient elevators, you know, the kind of with a big door and the thing comes down and there's a gated thing and it's all, you know, a little unnerving and kind of noisy, you know. So we're going to our designated floor and all of a sudden the elevator stops and we're like stuck in between floors. And that it's starting to not get funny, you know. And Audrey, you know, Allison helped her sit down. They had one of those old bench seats covered in this old red velvet. And, you know, Audrey sat down and was just sort of, you know, waiting to see what would happen next. And Boz yells out, "We're going to have to eat each other." Which was kind of funny. It was funnier when they got the elevator to work, believe me. Trust me, that was a moment where, you know, that's like nightmare scenario, you know, getting stuck in an elevator. An old English elevator. I gotta tell you, one of the guests at this event, I don't think he was a performer, but he was a guest, was James Taylor. Now, I'm a big James Taylor fan. I'll bet you are too. He was the first artist to be signed to Apple Records, the Beatles label. So, you know, that's certainly saying something, big time. And but something a little closer to home was that he did a movie with Dennis Wilson called Two Lane Blacktop. That was back in 1971. For you Beach Boy fans, I'm sure you're familiar with that movie. It's become a cult classic. It was kind of a sleeper when it first came out, but it picked up steam, and now it's considered a cult classic. Warren Oates, the great actor Warren Oates, he played, I think his character was called GTO. And then Laurie Bird was the female interest in all of this. Dennis played the mechanic, and James Taylor was the driver. I always thought the roles should be reversed, because Dennis was actually, you might say, a professional driver in the sense that he raced his Cobra out at Lions Drag Strip. I mean, I saw him racing rails, if you know what that means, if you're a car person, and winning. You know, he set a track record. So the point being, I thought, yeah, Dennis was miscast. He should have been the driver, but whatever, be that as it may. They did a movie together, so we have special, you know, feelings for James Taylor. And Ed Carter, who I spoke with earlier today, Smiling Ed Carter, he told me a great story. He told me back then, but I had him retell it, and that is, he feels he was the only one to witness this happen. He says, James Taylor walks into the backstage area, and Brian was sitting there alone on a chair, and nobody else in the room. James Taylor goes up and says something like, you know, Brian, I admire you so much. You're just so great. And Brian replied, no, James, you are really great. I admire you. You are really fantastic. I respect you so much. And then James was like, well, you know, but your voice, Brian, your voice is just so fantastic. And now Brian stands up and Brian's going, well, no, James, your voice is the greatest, you know. And then he starts, they both start to bow to one another. And with each compliment, the more and more, you know, but, you know, that song you wrote was so fantastic. Oh, no, you're the song you wrote. And the bows got deeper. And Ed Carter's watching this in amazement, because it's kind of, you know, to visualize that, it's pretty interesting. The two giants of music and harmony and singing and everything. Anyway, I have my own memory of that, of James backstage, and that it goes like this. The boys were rehearsing Their Hearts Were Full of Spring, the a cappella song. Since Brian was there, I did not sing the high part. Keep in mind, during the 70s, Bruce Johnston was not there. He had gone off to a solo career, and you know, as a songwriter and an artist, and so I inherited all the high falsetto parts that he had sung at one point that were really Brian's falsetto parts. So anyway, this particular night, Brian was there, and all the guys, and James Taylor witnessed the guys rehearsing this. There's a story told of a very gentle boy and the girl who wore his ring. Through the wintry snow, the world they knew was one, for their hearts were full of spring. As the days grew old and the nights passed into time, and the weeks and years took wing, gentle boy, tender girl, their love remained still young, for their hearts were full of spring. Then one day they died, and their graves were side by side on a hill where robins sing. And they say violets grow there the whole year round, for their hearts were full of spring. Isn't that lovely? Well, as I mentioned, Bill Withers was also one of the people on the show. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. It's not warm when she's away. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone, and she's always gone too long. Anytime she goes away. I know, 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 I know I should've leave that girl alone, but ain't no sunshine when she's gone. Only darkness every day. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. She's always gone too long. Anytime she goes away. And Stephen Stills. Uno mundo, somebody's dreaming. Uno mundo, fountain for scheming. Uno mundo, isn't he reading? Uno mundo, just the same. Uno mundo, Africa screaming. Uno mundo, Asia is bleeding. Uno mundo, America beating. Uno mundo, just the same. Oh yeah. So anyway, those guys were great. Stephen Stills in particular, you know, really stole the show. I think he just sat there with his guitar and he had a bottle of Jack Daniels there, and he was taking swigs off it. The executives loved him, and anyway, that was pretty exciting to watch him play. Anyway, I'm going to take another little sip here, and I would tell you the next segment about my dear friend Lowell George of Little Feat. I met Lowell at Danny Hutton's house. You know, you never knew who you were going to encounter at Danny's, and Lowell was there one night. And I mean, Lowell was a LA guy, went to Hollywood High School. He was in the Mothers of Invention. You mean, you have to be a really fantastic musician to work with Frank Zappa. And he was just the greatest slide guitar player around. I mean, he just refined his technique. He had an interesting thing. He wore 11/16 socket wrench that he got from Sears Roebuck. That way, if he ever lost it, he could always go to the next city if he's on the road and get another socket wrench from Sears Roebuck, an 11/16. And so, you know, interesting. He told me that. And you know, Lowell was badass. He was a black belt in one of the martial arts. I think it was a Korean form of either karate or judo. Anyway, I spent a little time with Lowell in LA. In fact, I took him to Desi's house one night, and we went over to my buddy Jeffrey Cushingmurray's house. I think it might have been the same night. And Jeffrey is a buddy of mine who eventually ended up writing songs with Carl Wilson and Dennis Wilson for the LA Light album. And I even took him over to Carl and Annie's one night over at Stone Canyon, and he and Carl had a, you know, a jam session, music session. But anyway, it was interesting because I talked to Jeffrey today, and he was saying that, you know, he requested that Lowell play Rocket in My Pocket, which Lowell did. He says he had one foot up on Jeffrey's couch, and he played Jeffrey's Telecaster, and then Jeffrey and I performed a song that Jeffrey wrote called Trying to Make Ends Meet, which Lowell found to be just fantastic, and said, whoa, you know, you're the second great new writer that I've heard. The other great new writer was Ricky Lee Jones. And I requested that he sing along with me on this song that, you know, I was with Brian at the Brother Studios in Santa Monica one day, and he said, Billy, get in there and, you know, sing a vocal on this. So I got to sing a demo vocal, a scratch vocal on Honkin' Down the Highway and Moni Moni, the Tommy James song that the Beach Boys eventually covered. And I think Brian sang the Moni Moni version, and Al ended up singing the actual lead version on Honkin'. But I gave a Lowell a part, and I gave Jeffrey a part. My part would be, of course, honk, honk, honking down the highway. And I said, Lowell, you sing this. That's me. Lowell, sing. Honk, honk, honking down the highway. Nothing to it. And Jeffrey would be honking down the highway. So the triad would be. And on the record, you can hear Dennis singing the low part, which is so cool. Anyway, it goes like this. Honking, honking down the gosh darn highway. Try to get past them cars. Got a little angel. She's the one that said she'd go with me to see a little movie tonight. Honk, honk, honking down the highway. Her folks told me that she's lonely and she wants me only. She's used to run away from guys, praying that you'll hold me tight, hoping that you'll see the light. If I gotta spend my money, even if I have to act funny, to go and steal her heart away. Honk, honk, honking down the highway. Take it one little inch at a time now, until we're feeling fine now. I guess I got away with girls, sing with me. Honk, honk, honking down the highway. 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 Anyway, that was a blast. Also, Lowell taught me this song, which I think is just one of my favorites. He played it for me that night because I asked him to. And it goes like this. It's just one of my favorites. Well, I've been warped by the rain, driven by the snow. I'm drunk and dirty, don't you know I'm still willing. Well, I was out on the road late last night, seeing my pretty Alice in every headlight. Alice, Dallas Alice. And I've been from Tucson to Tucumcari, to Hatchapee to Tonopah, driven every kind of rig that's ever been made, driven the back road so I wouldn't get weighed. And if you give me weed, whites and wine, and you show me a sign, I'd be willing to be moving. Well, I've been kicked by the wind, robbed by the sleet, had my head stoved in, but I'm still on my feet, and I'm still willing. Smuggle some smokes and folks from Mexico, bathed by the sun every time I go to Mexico. And I'm still willing. I've been from Tucson to Tucumcari, to Hatchapee to Tonopah, driven every kind of rig that's ever been made, driven the back road so I wouldn't get weighed. And if you give me weed, whites and wine, and you show me a sign, I'd be willing to be moving. All right. Thanks. I'm going to go back to see where I am with my notes here. I'm going a little bit long as usual, folks. I sure hope you don't mind. I got to see Little Feat play in London, I think the night after the convention, and it was at the, I'm trying to find the venue here. Where did you go, venue? Where did you go? Yeah, it was at the Rainbow. Yeah, they have a Rainbow over there in London too. The Rainbow Theater, yeah. And Mick Taylor sat in. Yeah, this was August 3rd, 1977, the Rainbow Theater in the UK. Little Feat played Mick Taylor from the Stones, the gentleman who replaced Brian Jones, if you know that's even possible. But you know, Mick joined the group in like 1969 after Brian departed, and after that show, Lowell and I and Allison went to the session, Mick Taylor's session, and it was either at trying to find the studios, either at Island Studios or at Rampart Studios in London. And guess who's at the session? Mick Jagger. We walk into the booth, and the booths in an English recording studio are upstairs, and then the studio is downstairs. So we walk in, there's Jagger. I can't really believe that, you know, I'm about to meet him. And Lowell and he say hello, and then I'm introduced to him, and I said, oh, I was real excited to hear you were in the audience the other night at the CBS convention. And he said something like, oh, you don't have to get excited, you know, and he was very, like that. And it was a trip, you know. I mean, I was very fortunate to be in the presence of these people. Mick Taylor, you know, came from a blues background. He played with John Mayall, and he was like a jazz blues guy, very great guitarist. I mean, he played on the Stones' Let It Bleed, Get Your Yayas Out, Sticky Fingers, Exile on Main Street. I mean, Mick Taylor was a monster guitar player. And he stuck around with them till '74. So you know, a couple years later, he's doing this session, and I remember there were two girls there. I don't know who they were with, but they were, I'll never forget the way they were dressed. They were sort of like, they'd just been shopping at the Che Guevara surplus store. They were wearing camouflage and like bullet belts across their shoulders and chest here, but big bullets. I mean, you know, these kids these days with their, you know, camouflage and bullet belts. Anyway, so Alice and I are there and we're observing, and so Mick's downstairs, Mick Taylor, on guitar, and Lowell is playing bass. Lowell George is playing bass, and I don't know what to do with myself, so I go over to the B3 organ and I start, you know, like following what they're playing, and I'm writing the charts as best I could, trying to keep up with them. Every time they went around, you know, they were working on a song, you know, I'd be erasing stuff and, you know, filling in chords and trying to make it work and try to be helpful and useful, you know. I showed them the chart and they kind of chuckled because it's like, as if to say, charts? We don't need no stinking charts, you know. They're just really improvising. But I was trying to make myself useful, as I say. So anyway, in the middle of all this, in floats Bianca Jagger, dressed in purple chiffon from head to toe, feathers and boas, and Allison said she couldn't take her eyes off of her because she was such a vision of purpleness, you know. And she's a beautiful woman, of course, and yeah, she came into the session for a moment and said hello, and you know, that was that. And I don't know, it was quite a night to remember, and Mick Jagger was there, sort of trying to contribute to whatever the lyrics. It was actually a Mick Taylor session, so he was there to, I don't know, hang out. But I'm glad that he did, because now I can say I met him and I get to tell you the story. And when I was at the organ, working on, you know, sort of trying to do a keyboard part to what they were playing, I was wearing headsets, and I heard this psst sound, you know, psst. And what was that? You know, I heard it again, psst. And I turned around, and Jagger's leaving, and he's waving goodbye to me. So I guess I made some kind of an impression on him, and he waved goodbye, and I'm about to wave goodbye to you, nice folks. I've reached the end of my stories here and my songs, and I've got one more song to play. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. We've done a full hour tonight, and I love it. I'm so glad you stuck around to be with me. It's an honor to come into your homes and share my life with you a little bit and reminisce with you. Maybe it brought up some great memories for you. I hope it did. And as I say, if you feel so moved, there's a PayPal link, there's a Venmo link. Send in a little something, keep the lights on and the home fires burning, I like to say. And I hope to see you next week, God willing, and the creek don't rise. And I'm going to leave you with a song I always leave you with. Positivity every day. Positivity in every way. Positivity is what I need. Positivity, yes indeed. Positivity throughout the day. Positivity, that's what I say. Positivity is my friend. Positivity through thick and thin, yeah. Positivity is good for my soul. Positivity for young and old. Positivity for everyone. Positivity, we've just begun, that's right. All right, let's stay positive, everybody. It's been a blast spending this time with you, and I wish you only the greatest things that life can bring you. Good night.